Hello, and my name is Sam Adams, and I'm here to talk to you today about the best way to prepare for SATs and looking at a whole school approach. Before we get onto that, just a little bit about myself, my background. I was a maths subject leader. I was also a primary maths teacher. I've worked right the way through the age range from foundation, started in foundation and finished in year 6. I've also done some recent supply work, so that I've also worked in year 5 and year 6 and prepared a number of children for SATs. I'm now working as an external consultant, but I do still work with teachers and I still work from foundation through to year 6. Okay, so we're looking at the whole school approach. That may be a very odd thing to think about because some people go, well, year 6, it's year 6 SATs, it's year 6 SATs. But actually, it's not. It's Key Stage 2 SATs. Key Stage 2 SATs cover things from year 3 right the way through to year 6. That's the first thing to say. But there are certain things that we're looking at across the school that I think will help children to be ready, SATs ready, in May in their year 6. Things like this. Big message at the moment is to slow the curriculum down. In the past, we've rushed through things far too quickly. We've gone for coverage rather than mastery. Mastery is the big thing at the moment. Are children secure in what they do? Can they apply it? Do they understand the concepts? Can they explain the concepts? Have they got that deeper learning? If we look for coverage, we're moving from one subject to another subject far too quickly. And in fact, foundation stage is probably one of the best places to start with this, because in terms of their coverage and in terms of their fluency and in terms of how they operate their curriculum, we see that that curriculum is slowed down, and it just means children have much more control of their maths moving into year 1. Do we have a whole school plan? What do we use in terms of planning? How do we plan? Do we plan in blocks? Are we looking at 2 or 3 week units or 4 week units or possibly even 5 week units rather than 1 week units and then move on to something else? And ideally, we won't be plugging gaps. A phrase I hear quite a lot from year 6 teachers is, I'm plugging the gaps that have come from previous year groups. We don't want to be plugging gaps. We want children to be secure from foundation stage right the way through to the end of year 5. So when we hit year 6, we're at a point where the children can be confident and secure, and indeed their teachers can be confident and secure in their curriculum and not a previous curriculum. One whole school approach that has worked particularly well is a speaking and listening approach. We've said to children right the way from foundation stage, right the way up to year 6, quite early in the autumn term, that we are really pushing 2 questions. And those 2 questions are how and why. How do you know, with young children, how do you know that that answer is 4? Why can't it be 6? And hopefully the children will explain exactly how they know the answer is 4 and why it can't possibly be 6. We want the children to respond in mathematical sentences, and we give them prompts. Those prompts start with, I think, because, da-da-da-da-da. I know, da-da-da, because, da-da-da-da. I predict, which is a good one to get children to think about, predict, estimate, because, da-da-da-da-da. We've had incidences in Key Stage 1 where children have said, I think, no, they've said, I know the answer is blah, 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 because. So they've actually made a progression within the course of that lesson, and they've got a better understanding of the content of the curriculum they're working with. The other elements we're looking for are words like reason and justify and explain and be systematic. Being systematic is absolutely key in mathematics. And I like the idea of getting children to think about what comes first, what comes next, and finally what do we do. And it's that kind of language. First do this, then do this, and finally. We had a situation of a year 5 boy recently in a primary school who was sitting working through a problem, and he was doing this. And I said, hello, what are you doing? He went, I'm being systematic. And he was being systematic. He was looking at how to go through the steps in order to respond to a question. And up here we've got ECC, estimate, calculate, check. Children do not like estimating. They do not like checking. They need to understand that those 2 things are vital for getting a clear understanding of an answer and a good guess. Not just an estimate, but a good estimate. That can be started in the foundation stage and worked on right the way through Key Stage 1 and right the way through Key Stage 2, so it becomes second nature. The TECC model. TECC stands for talk, estimate, calculate, check. So we're including those ECC bits in this problem. We tend to use this more in Key Stage 2. We've used it across year 3 into year 6. The The children have a problem to solve in the centre. They then talk about the problem, and they might look at things like, is it in the right unit? What will the answer look like? Is the answer going to be a measure? If it is a measure, will it be millilitres or litres or pounds? The question might be all in millilitres and the answer might be in litres. So the children need to understand they have to make a change. If they sign their thinking in that top left-hand box, we've then got a good baseline assessment of what children can do, what they know and what they understand. And then just working through ECC, and that's why we have the arrows. We want the children to understand that this is a process and we can slow things down. Going back to that first slide, we're slowing things down so children understand what they're doing. And in the best case, a year 5 girl said recently, she said, oh, it all links, doesn't it? Everything links. And I said, what do you mean, what do you mean? And she said, well, you start here, you do all your thinking, you're talking. That helps you with your guess. That helps you work out your answer. That helps you to check it. And then we can go back and talk about our think talk and see if we got it right. I thought, what a great answer. I like that a lot. There are some must-haves, some really key things that you would expect to see across the school. In Key Stage 1, the children must know their number bonds. They must be really clear on the number bonds. And you can do things like playing ping pong. So you might say to the children, we're going to play a game, and we go ping, pong, ping, pong. If I say 7, I want the children to respond with 3 for bonds to 10. So we go 7, 3, 6, 4, 8, 2, 1, 9. And it should be rapid, it should be instant. Children need to know their times tables and their related division facts by the end of year 4. We need to practice those constantly. Those are a must-have, non-negotiable if you like. Things that children should be doing all the time, constantly. And if we can get home support as well with that, that's even better. And the big one, which for me is a really interesting one because it's not actually in the national curriculum per se, it's in the non-statutory guidance in year 2, which means that teachers don't have to do it, but I think it's really important that we do, is partitioning numbers in different ways. So children understand that if I partition 34, it's not just 3 10s and 4 1s, it's 2 10s and 14 1s, or 1 10 and 24 1s. That will help them later when they're using subtraction and using decomposition, so they understand how a number is put together. That for me is really key, so that's why I've put that in bold. The other thing, we talked about whole school approaches right at the beginning, whole school approach with your calculation policy. What does your calculation policy actually cover? What does it look like? The national curriculum is pretty good at telling you what to do, or telling you what to do, not necessarily how to do it. So it's important that we understand the sorts of strategies that we want the children to use. This policy is just an example from a school that I'm working with. So we have objectives down the left. We have mental recall in year 2. This is what we want the children to be able to do fairly quickly. What strategies are we teaching? What strategies are the children using in year 2 to be confident and have built on from year 1? And then your written methods go down the right-hand side. Every year group has that for addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. And for this school, they also have a section on fractions and link that into division as well. The other really important thing is, if you have a calculation policy, does it have a foundation stage section? Because it should. If it's a whole school approach, foundation stage should also have their input at the start of the policy too. Classroom environment. What sort of things are we doing to promote things like vocabulary, to promote things like the basics? The basics are fluency approaches. Can the children do this? The national curriculum statements, the national curriculum objectives, and then problem solving and reasoning. I think it's really important that as a school we make a decision as to how we're going to promote our classroom environment, our working wall if you like. And I like the idea, nice and simple, 3 sections. Vocabulary, signs and symbols, your add sign goes there, your equal sign goes there. Possibly with the younger children, you might colour code, so everything in add is blue, everything in subtract is green. The basics, we'll put those in a logical order for children, and we'll make sure that they understand one step before they move on to the next. And we'll give them a chance to properly reason and problem solve. And the working wall, the classroom environment, will reflect the unit of work that we're doing. So that wall will stay up for 3 or 4 weeks and will benefit the children, teachers, teaching assistants, so the children are able to talk it through and understand how that works as a classroom resource, not just a piece of wallpaper. So finally, in terms of your next steps as a result of this seminar, this webinar, planning, the pineapple approach. It's called the pineapple approach. I looked at this the other night, I couldn't remember what the pineapple approach was, and then it came to me. Chunks, large chunks. We should be doing the curriculum in large chunks. We shouldn't be skitting from one place to another. 1 week on this, 1 week on that, 1 week on something else. Large chunks, 4 or 5 weeks on addition and subtraction maybe, 4 or 5 weeks on shape, properties, 4 or 5 weeks on statistics. Remember, most year groups have got 6 strands. 6 strands across the year, 6 strands, 6 half terms. So you're looking on average at sort of 5 or 6 weeks per strand. If you think of it like that, then it's doable, I would suggest. We need to develop fluency. That's a national curriculum expectation. We need to develop children's fluency in calculations, yes, but we need to get them to understand there is a link from one element of maths to another, from one strand to another. Fractions is a perfect example. Fractions, 10:30. Have teachers made that link from time to fractions? Half a kilogram with measures. Measures again, if you think about a number line. If we put 0, quarter, a half, 3/4, the measure from one space to another is identical. Do children understand that? Symmetry, half a shape. Are we making those links so that children can make those links? And the other thing is challenge and resilience. We want our children to be confident with the maths, but we also want to set enough of a challenge so that the stuff we do is not easy, if you like, not straightforward. And one of the best examples of that recently was it was a Key Stage 1 classroom, and one of the children said, "This is really quite tough." And I said, "Yeah, is it impossible?" And they went, "Oh no, it's not impossible, it's just really quite tough." And I quite like that. I quite like the idea they were going to give it a proper go on this investigation, and they came up with a result at the end of it. Resilience, I think, is key, major. And finally, do speak to us to find out more about approaching SATs effectively as a whole school, and we have our contact details there at Third Space Learning. Thank you very much for listening to this, and I hope it's been of benefit to you.